Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Crystal Barrow. I'm a certified career and leadership coach, and I'm helping prominent professional women to navigate their career moves.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started with this episode.
So that might be a job search, it could be a career transition to something new, or perhaps just helping them develop their leadership skills as they grow in their careers. And the idea is to help them achieve or work towards that career fulfillment that we all work so hard for.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Krista. You see, just now before we started to record, we were just exchanging a few words that you'll be here in Italy before you be to Venice and places like that. That is really interesting. So that I would like to spend a
It's
few
been nice.
seconds. Yeah, I would like to spend a few seconds trying to understand where you were born and where you grew up. I will try to understand a little bit of your childhood. Please tell me something about that.
Yes, okay, sure. So I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York, and moved out of my mom's home to Westchester County. So I currently reside in White Plains, New York, here in the United States. And I love it. I've been here for about 22 years now. But most of my schooling and where I was raised was in the Bronx. So that is a community very dear to me. A lot of my work and my career were in the Bronx and in Manhattan or New York, serving communities as an attorney. I'm a former practicing lawyer as well.
So you're not practicing anymore.
I'm not. I took a leap of faith about 3 years ago to work full time in my business to try to grow my business. So I ditched the 9 to 5.
This is good. This is very interesting.
Thank you.
All right. First, tell me, you were growing up in New York now. And what do you see around you? I mean, give us a little feel of the environment that you grew up in.
Yeah, so you're speaking about in the Bronx. I have to say it's sort of a mixed bag. I was born and raised in the Bronx. There are certainly some areas or sections of the Bronx that are not as people friendly, I'll say, as opposed to others. I have been fortunate enough to have a great mother who sort of sheltered me a bit from some of those experiences. But surely I have had my fair share of running into individuals or people who, let's just say, did not have my best interests at heart. But overall, the Bronx community is really a close-knit one, full of people who encourage and support one another. I think it's important that, what we see in the media can be not always a 360 view of what it's like. So very fortunate to not have too many horror stories. It's near and dear to my heart, but just like everywhere else, it has its pockets where, we want to continue to be safe and or be alert, right?
I'm not going to dig on that so that we'll be able to have time to concentrate on the business because this is what we're actually here for today. Although we actually still pay attention to your background because it is important for us.
Yes.
But first thing I want to understand now is how did you get started in business? This is important for us.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So, my business really began as a side hustle or side gig, if you will. It was born out of myself helping other people with their jobs, in their interviews, their follow up to employers. So it was really just a matter of having conversations with friends, colleagues, family, and they would ask me questions. But my answers were actually helping them move further along and were very valuable and beneficial to them. And then one day, a good friend of mine said, you really could have a business. You could really monetize what it is that you're doing. And at first, I have to say, as a lawyer, I was like, with no business background, it really was not what I was thinking about. And then learned shortly around that time what coaching was, and that how I was helping people, helping other women to set goals, to set intentions, and to hold the others in support of reaching their goals, that was actually part of coaching. And so the two started coming together. I had people and God, if you will, really whispering to me, there's something more here, along with the world of coaching being introduced to me. And that was kind of this perfect mesh for me. I began it as a side hustle for several years.
Thank you so much for that. That's good. That's great. All right, you did make mention of the fact that you were already a practicing lawyer until at a point you decide to leave that to pursue your career. Okay, this different phase of your career now, which is the business.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sort of curious about that. The law that you studied, was it about business or was it related to business? Let me understand that part.
Yeah, good question. It was not at all. I was a criminal prosecutor for over 10 years. So I was the person representing the New York State and representing my local, at the city level, the Bronx community. I was helping to, victims of crime, and working to make sure that those who were accused of crimes, that were proven guilty of crimes, there was justice. And so had nothing to do with starting a business, contracts, all of those things were not in my purview as a criminal prosecutor. Before law school, I was also a federal law enforcement officer for the Immigration Service. So even then, I was working for the Department of Justice, and at that time it was the INS. I was doing something very different from having a business and from coaching people. I was enforcing the federal laws when it came to immigrants who were unauthorized to work in the United States. So very different.
Very different. Okay,
Yeah.
this is very interesting now. So how did you manage to make the connection from working in from a purely law where you have to do with immigrant to business? I'm trying to see the connection there. Help me do that.
Yeah, it was the same for me. At first, it was really unexpected. But what started to happen was that the more and more I helped people who were coming to me with questions or just sharing with me their job search, what their goals were, what they were trying to obtain in life. As I started to help more and more people and reached out in support of people and made myself available and was helping people get results, this kind of culminated in skills and talents that I wasn't necessarily aware that I had at first. And then when someone introduced me to coaching, I obtained my coaching certificate. It was also a personal, life-altering program for myself. And that was the first inkling of where the program said, you could do this for a living. You can have a coaching practice. Here's what you would need to get started. And I started to explore that, but then a lot of fear, because I didn't have a background in business, started coming to the surface. So I put it off for a while. I would only help friends and family. I didn't share with people what I was doing. So there were a number, about 3 to 4 years actually, that went by where I was stuck in the perfectionism of what would having a business look like. And when I started to shift from that and give myself a chance in business and just get started, that's when it all started to form. And then people started to show up in my life that started helping me to develop it, build it. I started teaching myself and started surrounding myself with people who were in business doing what I wanted to do, who showed me the way. And so that's what I continue to do even as I build today. So it really came from a discovery of talents and gifts that I have, and figuring out how to now create the business and monetize my gifts and my talents while being a servant for others, and letting that grow to the point where I wanted to do it full time.
If I ask you how fulfilled you were, because we're going to be going around the theme of fulfillment throughout the conversation, what is remaining in this conversation.
Yeah.
It might sound a little bit funny, but anyway, I'm going to ask you, how fulfilling was the job for you when you were still working as a lawyer before you started your business? Tell me about that.
Yeah, another great question. It was very, very fulfilling. I had always wanted to go to law school. So I was watching courtroom dramas on TV all the time. I had opportunity to take college courses when I was in high school that were about the law. So it was always my plan. I did not have the easiest time getting into law school, and I sort of detail this in a book that I wrote in 2018, because that really was also a pivotal point, a milestone for me personally. And so while I was successful with over 10 years as a lawyer, both at the city level, the state level, and had established myself with a legal career, I realized there was still this tug to do something different, to do something bigger, to have a different type of impact on the world and my community and others. And it was in this form. So it wasn't for me a situation where I hated what I was doing or I hated my job and I was going to flee it. There were things, of course, that there were ups and downs and things that I didn't particularly love, and just like everyone else. But it really just became a calling that really found me. And I began to listen to those nudges and whispers and used basically this also refers to the previous question. I used some of my lawyer skills in my coaching. So as a lawyer, I'm able to communicate with people very well, speak to different audiences. I'm able to be super laser focused as is required by a lawyer. So all of these things help me with my clients and in coaching and in helping others. So it really was that was instrumental for me.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. All right, now you are in coaching business. You are a coach.
Yes.
So tell me, what is your coaching around?
So a lot of it can be men and women, but particularly women who come to me with multiple challenges. And these challenges, if they have had for quite some time, usually. So it can be that they're in the middle of a job search and they aren't getting some traction. Either they're not landing interviews, they're not sure they're applying to the right jobs, they are getting stuck, and maybe they are landing interviews but not getting the job offer. So things are challenges around the job search. Then there's also those who come to me with wanting to do something different. So like myself, they're hearing the nudges, their intuition is saying that they are to be doing something bigger, better, more impact, have more contribution, feel more value. And it's not where they currently work. It might be in a similar job, but for a different employer, or they want to be doing something completely different. So for example, the lawyer who's unhappy with practicing law that wants to do something completely different, that might be a career transition to something new. And also there are people who enjoy their job, who really love their job, but they're not getting traction. Maybe it's a promotion, a raise. They don't have the executive presence that they want, or perhaps they're not getting that recognition that they want, things like that, where I help them right where they're at the same employer to basically level up and go after the advancement that they've been seeking.
All right, now for people who are trying to understand what is even the meaning of career fulfillment, how do you describe it to them, since this is sort of the central piece of what you do?
Yeah, it's really going to differ for everyone, right? So overall, I will say that when it comes to career fulfillment, and I know for myself, there was this realization, this feeling of, this is it for me. This is what I want to be doing. This is what I enjoy doing. It's work that fulfills me, that satisfies me, that is of great reward, that has impact on others. And so I always tell people, when you're thinking about fulfillment, first to identify what that looks like for you. Right? What does fulfillment look like for you? Because that could be how it looks for me, could be different for you, could be different for someone else. So, but you'll know this feeling, and it's a feeling of not wanting to escape. It's a feeling of success and how you define success for yourself. And there's this overwhelming realization that you're right where you need to be, want to be, and having the contribution and value that you want to have. So it's a very personal thing. It's also a very outward thing and a holistic feeling, if that makes sense.
It does, it does, it does. And but of course, I'm still going to ask you something related to that
Yeah.
that I already asked you. Now, how do you know that you have found something that you will say this is the work that I really want to do?
Yeah, that it's really the feeling. So most times when people come to me that are not feeling fulfilled, and I ask them, well, what does that look like for you? Tell me, share with me what's going on and where you're currently at in terms of the particular challenge that they came to me with. A lot of times I will hear that it's work that is that they don't enjoy doing. They actually don't like the type of work that they do from day to day, which we know is not a good feeling. Perhaps they are in an environment that is not challenging or that helps them thrive. They feel stuck. And when you're feeling fulfilled in your work, you don't feel stuck. You feel like you're challenged. You feel like you're thriving. You feel like you're having an impact on other people, that you're feeling valued. When someone's not feeling fulfilled and they come to me, they're feeling like their voice is not being heard, that they've lost some power, particularly have lost some confidence. And when you're feeling fulfilled, you feel confident. You feel like you are learning and that there's more for you to learn and that you can share your gifts, your skills, your talents, your knowledge, all of these things with others. When you're unfulfilled, you don't have motivation to do those things. You don't look forward. I call it the Sunday scaries. You don't look forward to that Monday morning when you're about to
Sound
start.
scary.
The Sunday scaries, they'll set in, in the evening, Sunday evening, and if you're starting to say to yourself, oh man, I really don't want to go to work tomorrow. Or, oh man, what is my boss going to drag me about this week? Those kinds of feelings are symptoms that you are lacking fulfillment in your job.
Thank you so much. Those that are listening to us, yes, pay attention to those things. If you are
Yes.
scared on Sunday because it's going to be Monday, anyway,
Not
you
a
know what to
good,
do
not
about
a good place to be.
that. All right. Now, um, this feeling that some people have, say people that are in the workplaces, which of course you are now assisting, when you look at the age and demography, are there some differences depending on maybe where somebody might be coming from?
Yes, so it depends on what you refer to. So, for example, when it comes to job searches, men will apply for a job even if they just have 60% of the criteria or feel like they are 60% of a match for the job. Whereas women in particular will look at a job and they will only want to apply if they are a 100% match for a job. So you can see how that could be limiting for women. And in fact, no one is a 100% match for any role. So there are particular things like salary negotiation, for example, where men on a whole have an easier time of asking for what they want, salary wise, compensation wise, package wise, and they don't care. They will just ask, and if you don't give it, they will move on to the next. Women have a tougher time as a whole, not everyone, being a self advocate or asking for what they want and deserve, or kind of feeling this gratefulness to be offered a job and not wanting and just wanting to settle for whatever's presented to them. So there's an interesting dynamic when it comes to men versus women in some areas of our careers, as well as age, right? And so the younger generation might jump around from job to job year after year, as opposed to the older generation who might be looking for more what they consider job security. And so this is where you find people in the same job 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years until retirement. And they're not going anywhere. So lots of the demographics, psychographics as well, how they think of themselves, how they think of opportunity can come into play.
That's interesting. All right. Now, looking back again to what you were saying just now, referring to may be prone to ask in most of the cases, hey, I'm qualified for this, give me a raise, even though sometimes they might not get it. Let's say most of the cases they do. Whereas women, in most of the cases, don't ask for it. Are there reasons for that? Are there reasons why that is the situation?
Yeah, there's a lot of theories out there. Some women you'll hear that some women suffer from imposter syndrome. So women can have a more difficult time being confident in what they have to offer. Therefore, there's less motivation or less feeling like they can ask and that they will receive or get. Sometimes by the nature of what has happened in a workplace, where if men are more valued or more acknowledged and recognized, moved through the ranks and can achieve certain levels of leadership, if women in that same place have become devalued or simply just not heard or not promoted into levels of leadership, etc., then what happens is a chipping away at the confidence. And so the woman does not think to, oh, I should ask or I want to ask for more money. The woman thinks, I don't have enough, I'm not enough, or how could I ask for 6 figures if I can't demonstrate or I don't have the experience, when in fact they do. But because of their experiences or what has taken place in a workplace or maybe in their work history, or just individually as a person, if they don't have the confidence to do so, then there's a loss of opportunity. And that can show up in the way of finances, can show up in the way of other job opportunities. Women may not go for the promotions or advancement opportunities that become available because of what the stories that we can tell ourselves. So very interesting indeed. There are a number of theories out there as to why it is, but it's part of the reason I do what I do, which is to empower professionals, particularly women, to show up and be a self-advocate, to assess themselves and learn what it is that the value that they have and be confident in that value so that they can ask for what they deserve and obtain it.
If you think you deserve something, don't wait. Ask for it.
Yes.
All right. Now, Krista, a woman come to you in this situation. She have not been able to ask for what she deserves, and from indication, it shows that she deserves it. How do you manage to help her understand that she need to ask for it so that she can eventually go ahead and do that? Take me through the process.
Great question. So there is a process that is seemingly long for purposes of today, but I will share that a lot of times right off the bat from the beginning, I will have a discussion with this client or potential client about their values and their strengths and their skills. So it's important that you are doing a self-assessment and you're almost creating a highlight reel, if you will, of your skills and abilities so that you can really tap into your strengths. What is it that you have to offer? What's the value that you bring to the table? A lot of times, women and some men don't recognize that for themselves, so it's hard to articulate that, whether it's in an interview, whether it's for an internal position or an external role. It starts with, can you even identify your own strengths and skills? What are those skills? If you can't identify them, let's talk about the blocks that are keeping you from doing that. And let's get you to that point. If you can identify, or once you can identify those strengths and skills, then we take a look at what you value. This is important because for you to thrive and achieve fulfillment and be in a place where you can thrive, you have to have what do you need in that position, in that role, or from this employer that will help you thrive. You have to be able to identify that so that you know whether this is a good fit for you or not. Rather than jumping from job to job to job and putting a band-aid on what's the problem, you've got to go to the core, right? And so we look at strengths, we look at skills, we look at values and identify very specifically the value you bring to the table. That is the beginning of the process, because then we can now take concrete action steps to help you articulate your value when it comes to asking for a promotion or asking for salary increase. Maybe it's negotiating a job offer, all these things. I mean, there's multiple reasons and benefits of doing that, right?
All right. Now, looking at New York, where you are, maybe in some other Western society, it can be in London or Paris. What are the things that actually influences people's choice of career, well, from your understanding?
Yeah. So what I see a lot is, finances are a big thing. Compensation, salary. Everyone says, show me the money. Right? And it's important, right? We have to live. You're going to consider what lifestyle you have or the lifestyle that you want. You should know what your numbers are. But I say, a more holistic approach is always good, because like I was saying previously, you will find yourself jumping from job to job or career to different career. If you're and still seeking career fulfillment, if you haven't really addressed these things or taken into account these things. And so most people are taking into account salary and compensation. What they also should be considering are there people that you want to work with? Are they people that you like, that you can get to know, that you feel like you can trust? Trust is a very big factor when we're talking about working with someone or for someone 8 hours of the day, right? Whether it's remotely or in person. So we should be taking that know, like, and trust factor. What are the tools, resources available for development for you as a person individually and for you as an employee? These are other things to consider that I believe are important, right? Holistically speaking, to determine whether this is a good fit career for you. Looking at your immediate goals, your short-term goals, your long-term goals, right? These are the things, considerations you want to be looking at. You might have also, what are the mentorship opportunities available for you? Are you given direction? Is there training provided? All of these things. If you need a flexible schedule, do they provide that for you? Is there opportunity for advancement? This is a big one. People come to me all the time. One of the chief complaints is that they're leaving where they are because there are no opportunities for advancement or growth or feeling challenged. So this is just some of the things to consider that I find most people do consider. You want to really put it at the forefront, though, especially if you're moving to a new job, because it's a fresh start.
Fresh start, sure. All right. Because the workplace is beginning to change also, these characteristics that you describe, are they, how relevant are they? Because, okay, by changing of workplaces, I'm talking of remote workplaces. These are, it can be because of the COVID-19 situation or just because economy is just not going to remain the same, no? So tell me if it's still the same or maybe they are still relevant in this situation.
Yeah, it's still relevant and it's still the same. It's probably more so relevant now because the last 2 years, as a result of the pandemic, what I've definitely have seen is a time of reflection. So many people, and particularly women, because of daycare, because of childcare, having to provide for childcare or being unable to provide for it, having to have a new routine for family, a new routine for self when it comes to working from home versus working in a hybrid situation, or when it comes to returning full-time back in the workplace. And so these considerations are even more important. What I'm finding is that most women and men are taking into account the container. So the future of work has certainly changed and will continue to change in terms of a flexibility of schedule, right? Means of communication, Zoom, Skype, all these different video conferencing systems that need to be, there has to be a knowledge base of this, learning to manage a team, lead a team, using these conferences, using these this technology has to be different. So this is really when you, one, have to look at whether this is an opportunity for change or growth or advancement. And it's really a perfect opportunity to find the silver lining in what has happened over the last couple of years when it comes to your career, to consider those things that I just mentioned, because what it has also showed us over the last couple of years, this pandemic, is that life is too short, that there's really no reason in this day and time that you really need to stay stuck in a job that you hate, a job that is soul sucking, a job that you are not challenged by, recognized in, or valued. There really is no reason. There's an opportunity for change. That change can come over time, for some maybe quicker than others, but there's no reason to be feeling stuck or stalled. It's opportunity to move forward and create the career that you want within the parameters that you have. A lot of us have families. I'm a single mom by choice of an almost 6-year-old. And so I know the challenges and the hefty decisions that need to be made when you're thinking about career change. But nevertheless, we can do hard things. So we have to consider those things, particularly now is the right time to do it.
Because of people changing careers, of course, I know this is something that some of your clients might have shared with you a number of occasions, no? And it's just normal that we change career because we are not planned. We're not supposed to remain in the same position forever and ever. So it's natural that we change. And if we are changing careers, and maybe we need to learn new things, particularly soft skills, depending, of course, the industry that we are talking about.
Yes.
Does they have a role in how we are able to maybe perform our job and therefore the fulfillment that we might have in the job that we are doing? What do you have to say about that?
Yes, if you're asking about the soft skills, this is brilliant because really more and more studies are showing that employers really pay attention to those soft skills. So if you remember earlier, I was saying there's a difference there statistically. Women are less likely to apply for jobs as men. And so by 20%, they're less likely to apply for different types of positions. And so frequently what I see is there's this search for the technical skills. Can I do this job? And do I have this software, or do I have these competencies in order to perform the job? But don't forget the soft skills. Are you a leader? Are you a collaborator, or can you work well with a team? Cross-functional teamwork, all of the soft skills that need to come into play are just as important, and for some employers, equally or more important than just the technical skills, because you can train someone on the technical skills and competencies, but the soft skills that a person can bring, those are individual. And that is really why I believe employers really hone in on those skills. It makes for a more well-rounded employee, a coachable employee, right? As someone, remember I talked about that know, like, and trust factor, someone who is more open and broad in that sense, whether introvert or extrovert, that's a different topic. But if someone can really have the hard skills and the soft skills and a perfect sort of sweet spot balance of those things, then that is ideal.
That is perfect. That is absolutely very important.
Yeah.
I think it was in the year 2020, throughout that year, we dedicated it to talking about soft skill, different type of soft skill that we need to learn. Because it is very important, from simple things as communication, learning how to negotiate, learning how to talk with people, particularly learning how to use technology tools. All these are things that you really do not have a choice, except of course you want to go out of job or out of business, depending on what you want. So now, for somebody, maybe a client of yours who is having some difficulty, because I want to believe that, anyway, maybe I'll come to that later, that you do a diagnosis of this individual who maybe come to you to complain, because people like to complain in most of the cases. Sometimes We're actually guilty of what we are complaining about, but we just feel like, hey, they are bad, or he is bad, or she is bad. Whereas we're not asking ourselves how much I'm actually doing, to make the situation better. So I'm trying to understand here now. So maybe some individual need to learn soft skill. What would you recommend for them? Where should they go? Because sometimes some of these soft skills are actually there for us to tap into to learn. So I'm looking at some area you would recommend somebody to go and learn.
Yeah, so you can identify. So this is all part of that self-assessment I was referring to earlier and creating that highlight reel. So you could basically make two columns for yourself, a column for the technical skills or hard skills and competencies, and then a column for soft skills. And this is what I do with clients as well. And so identifying, right, there's an umbrella of soft skills. And like you mentioned, communication skills, verbal and written, leadership skills, collaboration skills, for example, empathy, all of these things, right? The umbrella of emotional intelligence. So start with just a list of soft skills and identify what the soft skills are that you have, and get some assistance with this if you're unable to do it on your own. And identify any gaps, right? You're talking about skill gaps, basically. So identifying what are the skills that you're seeing, maybe from your job search, you're seeing that for a particular type of role that you're interested in, there's a pattern of or in-demand request for XYZ skills. If you see that you could up-level your skill or obtain new skill in these areas that you're seeing are in demand, there are ways to do this. You can go online. For example, there's a wonderful plethora of LinkedIn learning courses. LinkedIn, I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn. LinkedIn has LinkedIn learning courses available to you on a free trial basis, if not more through your employer. Coursera.com is another reputable and large library of trainings and professional development. So there are a multitude of ways in which to upskill, identify those skill gaps, upskill the skills that you have, and basically fill your cup of those soft skills. And I always say it's never too late. And this is important for your own professional growth throughout your career as you develop, but also particularly in the beginning when you're doing a reset or you're taking stock in your career, taking inventory of where you are in your career. It's a perfect thing to look at because there are skills that are probably more in demand in some industries or in some types of positions and roles than in others. And so get to know, that's why it's important to have a vision of what it is that you want and what you're looking for, getting to know what's required so that then you can hone in on what you have and don't have so that you can fill those gaps and give yourself, your brand, your professional brand, the strongest impact possible.
Thank you so much, dear Krista. All right, now talking of career and talking of fulfillment, are there some factors that actually lead to career fulfillment that maybe someone should pay attention to? Can you please share with us?
In terms of what fulfillment looks like, perhaps you want to make sure you just have that vision. So when someone says, I really want to achieve fulfillment or I'm not feeling fulfilled, remember that one of the biggest questions to ask right away is, what does that fulfillment look like for you? And the reason that I particularly ask that of people is because it's important to have a vision. If you can visualize it, it's possible, right? Or some of the greatest inventors in our lives, right, or before us and those to come, start with vision, right? Start with vision. And so for our careers, it's important to see what it is that we're aiming for. So it calls us to be really specific, right, on the skills that's required, on where we are, taking stock and inventory on where we are right now in our career and where we want to be. What I see a lot is that our careers don't necessarily rise to the top of the list of priorities as some of the other areas of our lives. So for example, when it comes to physical activity and weight loss, this is by far one of the biggest things people will invest in, right? Whether it's buying supplements and vitamins, whether it's getting a personal trainer or a coach, fitness coach, whether it's taking classes or working out from home, whatever it might be. People will dig into their pockets. They will have a vision of the before and after. They will take before and after pictures and get really, really specific and motivated when it comes to physical activity or health and wellness. Same thing for perhaps finances, right? People will diversify a portfolio. People will invest. People will save money. People will spend money. People will have a vision of what it is they want to attain, financially speaking. I ask those same questions. And my challenge for your audience is to ask those same questions of your career. Do you have a specific and finite place you want to be in your career? And have you created that vision for yourself to work towards? Or are you keeping it kind of status quo? Are you operating on autopilot? Or worse, are you living someone else's dream out because they said this is what you should be doing or what you're good at? Don't go that way. Don't do this. Or, it's too late in life to do this.
This is powerful. Are you living someone else's life, or are you living your dream?
It's one of the biggest reasons people don't find fulfillment for themselves, because they're not living for themselves. They have gotten into roles, jobs, titles, positions because of what their parents wanted, or they are afraid of judgment of others if they decide to make the change. Frequently, people will ask me, how in the world do you go from being a lawyer, a successful lawyer, to being a career coach? They don't understand maybe what a career coach is. They're not sure if it's a real job, right? All of these things. And so if I landed on the idea of what will people think, I may not have made the decision that I made. I mentioned to you, I became a single mom. I became a single mom by choice at the age of 42. And I now have a 5-year-old daughter who will be 6 at the end of May.
What do you mean by choice? Explain that.
Good question. So I made the decision on my own after dating and waiting for the white picket fence and the dog and the fairy tale that was not happening for me in my 30s, to take it upon myself to use IVF, in vitro fertilization, in order to have my child, to bring my child to life here. And so I used that way of bringing in my best friend, my true love, into this world. And what was going on at that time before I made that important decision and big decision in my life was, what if my finances aren't where they need to be? What if I can't provide for myself, nonetheless, for a child that I will bring into this world on my own by choice? If I let what will people think of me for making this choice, right? Many people believe that a child needs mother and father, or needs both parents, right? In order to be a fulfilled person, someone who can contribute to society. So if I felt that or let people's potential judgment of my choice interfere with what was good for me in my life, then my daughter perhaps would not be here and have the impact that she's already having on the world. So it's a very similar thing. When we talk about why people are afraid to make career change, they're afraid and have fear, and it's quite normal. It's no judgment around it. They're afraid and fearful around the judgment of others if they make a change. They are fearful that they don't have what it takes or what they need in order to make the change. They can't see that it's possible, or they feel stuck and can't kind of move beyond these feelings of stuck in order to make it happen. Or they don't have the support from others. I immerse myself around people who encourage me and only say, yes, 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 you can do it. Not those who say, ooh, I don't think you should do that. Then that's not someone that needs to be in my life. I can still have impact. We can still interact, but they're not going to be in my inner circle, the personal board of advisors when it comes to making decisions. So we need that same support and personal board of advisors for our careers. Yes?
Thank you so much for that. I like the intention, um, how you are intentional about this choice. It is life
Yes.
is a most of the things that happen in our life, the choice,
Yeah.
whether we are conscious of it or not conscious of it, but that is the way it is.
Yes.
Okay, there are some things that are beyond our control, but many things are actually under our control. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Now, talking of control, talking of fulfillment, and this is 2022. How important do you think it is that people should have life or work environment that is fulfilling for them?
Listen, it has always been, is especially now in 2022, again at this time, when we're still in a pandemic and thinking about what's to come, and certainly for the future. It is important to live a life where we are growing. There's a saying, right? If we are not growing, we are dying. And so that can speak it speaks to multiple areas of our lives. But today we're talking about career and career fulfillment. And so if you are not in a fulfilling career or having an impact or feeling valued or feeling challenged, then you're not growing as an individual. And that it breeds confusion, it breeds stagnancy. It can manifest itself physically in the form of depression, lack of motivation, lack of growth, um, lost opportunities, both financial or others, in terms of opportunities for advancement. It can impact social relationships because if you don't feel fulfilled in your work, we spend most of our time in our working hours. So if you're not feeling fulfilled in a 8 hour workday, for many people now more than an 8 hour or 40-hour week, then imagine that that's what you're putting the stress and overwhelm that you are putting on yourself, on your body physically, emotionally, financially, and in your relationships with family, friends, colleagues, and others that you come in contact with, that you work with, that you interact with. So the importance of it is astronomical. And it's really interesting. And I think the reason behind all the studies where there are millions of people who are, quote, dissatisfied in their work. Nevertheless, all the reasons why they are, but just take that alone, that in over the last 2 years, and particularly in 2021, that 47 million people left their jobs. Now they're still navigating it and figuring it out or returning or moving on, whatever it may be. But the fact that there was such a movement of sorts of that to that degree shows just how important it is.
I'm trying to understand here if there are some tips that people can use to sort of upgrade their workplace or their working environment in order to have fulfillment in what they are doing.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways to look at this. So fulfillment, people generally will think of the overall picture, how they are feeling about their work, whether they look forward to their workday, whether they are having impact on in their work or as a result of their work, and whether their contribution is being acknowledged and recognized. But then there's also productivity. And so being productive in your workday on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, then you want to, as you mentioned earlier, it comes back to the intentionality and really there's methods and ways of making sure that you're using your time effectively so that you can have maximum productivity throughout the day. There are ways to, if you are not happy in your work, there are ways to kind of break up your workday or find ways, mini breaks, things to focus on that can kind of give you that reset so that you can then focus on the work tasks at hand and kind of get back into the flow of your work so that you are more productive. So there's a difference between the overall fulfillment in your work in terms of your career, and then there's am I being productive in my workday on a daily and weekly basis? And when you feel more fulfilled in your work, the productivity is going to be increased. There's direct results, right? If you're not feeling fulfilled, there's less this less urge to be productive. And so productivity will actually decrease. And so that's why so many employers now are trying to figure out ways in which they can support their employees, contribute to their their well-being overall, because they know and recognize that not only does it increase their bottom line when it comes to money, but it's because their employees will be more productive. So there are ways to be more productive, as I mentioned, during your workday.
Now, looking at you personally, how have you built your own personal career fulfillment? I mean, what did you do to help you achieve your fulfillment in what you do?
Oh, I love that question. I don't know if anyone's asked me that before. So I would say that for me, it's just always been very important that I enjoy the work that I do and that there's a sense of, quote, happiness, quite honestly. I began to recognize certain symptoms when I would be no longer challenged or I was no longer thriving in a work environment. So, for example, if I found myself with the Sunday scaries that I mentioned, that's a symptom. If I found myself, there was a period of time where I was taking off Mondays and Fridays from work. I was doing it so robotically that I didn't even realize that it was because I was not feeling fulfilled or that there were challenges that I was having in my particular role at the time. And it was because of a supervisor that was invested in me, that was checking in with me to say, hey, I see you taking off, you're calling out on Mondays and Fridays, what's really going on? And began to recognize that there were holes in my fulfillment. And then we identified how to fill those gaps, and there were no issues going forward. And so recognizing those symptoms is really key. If you see changes in your behaviors, in the way you communicate, or maybe you no longer go to those after work happy hours with your coworkers, or you're not showing up to meetings unless you're forced to. A number of different ways, but it's a personal and individual thing. And for me, whenever I felt that felt the symptoms, saw the symptoms come on, I never really hesitated to begin the process of moving on, because I always felt, I guess maybe it's something inherent in me that life is just too short. And if I'm unhappy, I'm not going to stay unhappy. As you mentioned, there are some things in our control. And so no one's going to say, Crystal, leave that job. Or if they do, they're not the one to make it happen for you. So I'm a big proponent of taking ownership and responsibility for my career and my professional decisions and moving forward. And it's how I've been able to make such bold decisions.
I love that. It's good to be intentional about it.
And you got to be intentional with everything in life, including your career.
Krista, have there been some challenges in your career, in building up your career? Have there been some moments that were very challenging for you? How did you overcome them, if any?
Oh, of course. I mean, everyone has challenges, ups, downs, highs and lows, from working with the boss that you have to maybe there's a different personality, and I had to figure out how to navigate the personality, navigate the type of communication I was having with that particular boss, navigating figuring out the ways in which I could just get through the day sometimes. How was I going to set up my day to be productive, to accomplish the things that I needed to accomplish? How was I going to create support in my life so I can turn off work in the evenings and maybe tap into a friend to talk about what was going on? So, I mean, a number of challenges. I'm a former federal law enforcement officer, and law enforcement by its nature is male dominated. So a number of challenges very early on in my career being a woman in law enforcement. Also as a prosecutor. We talked about the Bronx and my community. And while I was honored to serve the Bronx community, it was also difficult to prosecute individuals who were from the community that I grew up in. right? And so there are a number of personal and professional challenges along the way, just like everyone else, that I have also detailed a bit more in my book to share the journey of how to bounce back from setbacks and how these things can just really make us stronger, and help us develop and be prepared for the next challenge to come, because there will always be something.
I think Les Brown was saying in one of his video. Of course, he too was quoting someone else that, okay, you see, life is hard. Well, sometimes maybe if you are happy now because you just pass a difficult moment, but don't think that is the end of it, because you are going to have, it's just like this, like the wave of the water, up, down, up, down.
Yes, exactly.
It's never just on the stuff or flat surface. It's no.
It's not. It's not. And anyone that you talk to that is successful as they define it, or successful in your eyes, you can read about them, you can have conversation with them. What sticks out most are people's stories and journeys. And what you notice, right, is that there's always ebbs and flows, highs and lows. And so we learn to navigate it, and that is actually what life is. Life is not the end game. The end game is when we pass away, right? That's the end. The actual living life is the journey along the way. So if we can figure out how to navigate the journey, stay with the journey, course correct when necessary, learn from the journey, that is actually life. It's not the end. It's not the end that we get the fulfillment, because we can't take those things with us. We don't feel after it's over, right? It's literally finite. That's the end. It's the journey along the way. So absolutely, those ebbs and flows are necessary for us to have fresh beginnings, and that's what we lean into.
That's really, really lovely. All right, now, Krista, which is, if you were to say, maybe this is one thing that is the most satisfying part of your business, the thing that sort of keep you going, because like you said, um, life is not just straight line like that. It's up and down, but there is something that keep you going. That sort of, no matter what happens, you remain on it. What is it?
So there's two things that come to mind. One is, if we're talking about personally speaking, in my business, it's the opportunity to have the impact that I have, and the global impact that I want. And so the opportunity to reach people across the globe is one of my missions. And the reward in seeing and helping people just move the needle in the direction. It's of course wonderful when I can help people land a new job, or help them achieve the goals that they have set for themselves. That is amazing by far. But when I think about the impact and setting an example for my daughter that I can have in this world by virtue of what I do on a day-to-day basis, that is the reward for me. The service piece of it, of course, being a business, right? This is the second piece of it. Of course, being a business, I am in it to bring in income, right? To provide for my daughter, provide for myself, have a lifestyle that I wish for, all these things. And so in business, what keeps me going is that I have made this bold decision for a reason, which means that this is also bigger than me. And a lot of people along the way told me, Crystal, every time you don't make a post, every time you don't offer help, every time you don't get on a live video, every time you don't reach out to a prospective client, whatever it might be, if you don't take a step, you are robbing someone of information and help or motivation that that person needs to move forward in finding career fulfillment and in finding success for them. And so to me, that means, number one, there's a responsibility as a human to keep going. And number two, I don't want to dishonor, nevertheless, anyone else by not showing up. I'm not going to dishonor myself and my decisions by not showing up. So that keeps me going. My mom keeps reminding me, get back to your why. get back to your why and keep going.
That's powerful. That alone already said it all. You think? I think it was Muhammad Ali who said that the rent we pay in this world is actually the service to other people who must be at a service.
Yes.
This is what we are called here to do.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
All right, Krista, use this moment to advertise yourself because we know that you value your time. People that are listening to you, tell them how can they benefit from what you do. Please go ahead and do that.
Oh, thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you for the opportunity today to have this conversation with you. Those that are interested in finding out more about me or in working with me can go to my website at www.shapeyoursuccesscoaching.com. I'm also on various platforms and social media. I'm on Instagram at Shape Your Success Coaching. That's my newest platform. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook. I have a private Facebook group that you can join, the Job Search and Career Success Network, as well as I'm primarily on LinkedIn. So be sure to connect. I love to hear feedback or just connect with new people and immerse myself with those who are looking to advance themselves and live their best lives and their best careers. And so again, just appreciate this opportunity. I'm working on getting on YouTube also, so I'm very excited about that. But just reach out, connect with me, and certainly schedule a career reboot call if you find that you're struggling on the implementation and execution of it all. We can always take in more information and we can learn. But if you don't know how to properly implement and execute, that's where you can find yourself stuck. So reach out to me to schedule that complimentary call, and let's get started.
That's lovely. All right, now what will be your final statement here? We have talked about different things. This can be your message. It can be a kind of reinforcement of a certain line that you have said before. Please go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I'm being drawn to communicate just to never give up, and that you are the creator of your own life and your career. So you have more opportunity than you think. When you shift the way that you think about things, that is what dictates the words that you say, and it dictates the behaviors that you make. And so if you can just give yourself opportunity to explore and take messy action, you will be pleasantly surprised at the life and career that you can build. So never, never, never give up. Surely give yourself opportunity to make change and to create the life and career that you want. You have to create it, create the vision, own it, and claim it. Yes.
Thank you so much, Krista. Thank you so much.
Very welcome.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.